Okay, then maybe we can begin. We have an hour and a half to look at some questions that have been sent in. When they come in, I just write them down as they come, so they go in different directions. And it's very nice that we can gather in this informal way to think a little bit about important issues in Dharma. So we have a question here, with vajrasattva purification, is it better to focus on one error or negative tendency at a time, or group them all together? We never know when we are going to die. So it makes sense to clean everything all at once. The mind is always open. What sticks us onto our negative habits is the ego's identification. Perhaps I think I am a bad person. I do many things which I regret. The reason I do the bad things is because I'm bad. In this construction, there is a very great error. As the teachings show again and again, the mind is pure from the very beginning. The aspect of personal identity, I, me, myself, arises in ignorance. But because we believe that we truly exist, and we see ourselves as an agent, as somebody who does, who acts, then we follow the idea that by our deeds, by our actions, we are known. How I behave tells you about me. Now, in conventional truth or relative truth, this is perhaps true. But if we do not simply start with the assumption that I exist, but start to observe what it is or how it is to be me moment by moment, then we see that the construction of identity is an ongoing process. I make and develop myself through my activities. I'm not a self-existing entity which is bad and therefore does bad things, but the intensity of activity generates a feeling of the doer. I have made this happen. This was bad, therefore I must be bad. This is why we have a vajrasattva purification. On an outer level, vajrasattva is able to wash away the stains or the products of our negative activity. However, as long as I believe that I exist, I turn my bad deeds gradually into good deeds. Now I feel better because I'm a good person. I don't feel shame so much, so I can greet people in an open, easy way. But I'm still here. So the real function or the deeper function of vajrasattva is to wash out or purify this strange kernel idea which moves around in our existence as our ever-changing and yet somehow permanent reference point. And the big obstacle to achieving purification through vajrasattva is to continue to believe in the truth of our individual ego self. So in the tantric system, particularly in the preliminary Nundro practice, you can do 100,000 and more recitations of the long and short vajrasattva mantras. But at the end of that, you can still have a fixed sense of self. So you have been cleaning out the cooking pan and scrubbing out the burnt stuff at the bottom of it. Now I have a bright, clean pot. What's the point of having a pot if I don't put something in it? So on the basis of this, I again flesh out and develop my sense of self. So it's very important to really see that the basis of all negative activity, and indeed of all positive activity, is the intention which arises from the basis of believing in duality. So there's another question on purification, which is, what is purification in the Dzogchen tradition, And what are the practices associated with it? Our mind itself, each one of us, our mind, the basis of our having any experience, is pure from the very beginning. Our mind is free or purified or never contaminated by the idea that I exist as an entity, a thing. This infinitely pure open ground gives rise moment by moment to the ceaseless display of the field within which we live and of the ways in which we move within that field. The ground, the pure ground, is unborn. It hasn't come into existence. What arises from it is the display of the energy of the unborn. What we see is light, what we hear is sound, vibration. This vibration is the potential out of which everything which can occur manifests. The big difficulty that we can have is to think, well, somehow the mind is like nothing, and yet there's all this stuff. If I bang on the table, my hand gets sore. So that proves the table is real. Now, when I first bang my hand on the table, it's a little bit painful, definite proof. But now the pain is going away. If you were looking at a detective film and the criminal was able to leave evidence which dissolved by itself after a few minutes, this would be very hard for the detective. Everything which arises is impermanent. It's there for sure, but going, already going. So when we see directly that the field of experience around us, everything we see in its actual manifestation for us is changing moment by moment, then I start to see, oh, the most permanent thing about the table is the idea of the table. The function of the table changes in the course of the day. Now it's evening, so the curtain is drawn, so the kind of light falling on the table is different. The table as revelation, as display, showing moment by moment, goes free by itself. If you stay with perception, then you see everything is self-arising and self-vanishing. But when we mediate our experience through this veil of conceptualization, then although concepts in themselves are self-arising and self-vanishing, when the energy of the mind merges into the seeming truth of the concept, it seems to distill an enduring essence, the table, the chair, my shoes, and so on. So then we see more clearly, oh, I am cheating myself. I am believing in something which is not true. Everyone agrees that my belief in what is untrue is very valuable and useful. All our good friends and our kind parents reassure ourselves that samsara is the only possibility. That's why we have to go out and seek for some teachers from the lineage who can point out, no, this is a great wave, a great cloud of confusion which settles on beings. And although they try their best, they can't see clearly under its power. So in Dzogchen, although there is nothing to be purified, except the delusion that there is something to be purified, if you don't directly open to the empty ground from which everything manifests, you will find yourself engaged in dualistic activity. So the focus is on awakening to our own mind as it is. When you see directly that you are emerging moment by moment from the ever pure ground, then it's obvious there's nothing to purify. Then someone sent in a question about something which I had said. So this is always very dangerous when you hear your own words coming back like a boomerang. This is the stability of the object is the movement of the mind. So this is really what we were talking about with the purification. The table is here. I've had this table for many years. I know it very well. It's a bit unstable, and I've used it for many purposes. In that way, I can explain to you why this table is reliable and stable. And I achieved this wonderful event by moving. My mind is moving with different thoughts, and they come out as energy through my voice. I explained to you, I've had the table for many years. So when you hear that and you follow the linking of the concepts in the sentence, it sounds like a definite proof. Oh yes, he's had this table. It's an old table. We are seduced by this meaning quality, the semantic content of the words. But the words come out in a linear fashion from my mouth. For the second word to arrive, the first word must already have vanished. If I try to say it all at once, the stability of the object, not very helpful. So one word, one word, one word, one word. Movement. We have to get used to seeing our life as movement. As some of us have looked many times, we are dynamic in our manifestation. Without breathing, we will die. Without the blood circulating, we will die. Without the words moving, we wouldn't have any language. Life is movement. And a side effect of movement is that it can be grasped as if it is proving the solidity of real things. So if we really observe, we see everything which seems to be enduring and solid and real is actually the product of movement. So it's not that something comes out of nothing, but nothing has a potential, or instead of nothing, we could say ungraspability has a potential. And this potential manifests itself as an incredible diversity of appearances passing through us and with us and as us moment by moment. So the basic instruction is to look, to observe, to open yourself to see what is there, and be aware of how seductive is the temptation to imagine rather than to see. So here's another question. Namkhai Norbu Rinpoche said that Dzogchen differs from advaita sense that all is consciousness. Can you say something about this? Advaita or advaya means not two. Dzogchen is also a non-dual philosophy. Non-dual means not just one thing. Everything is the Buddha mind, or everything is emptiness. In some of the philosophical schools, like the Prasangika, they emphasize everything is just emptiness, everything else is just ideas, only emptiness. But of course, the books with the pure view that everything is emptiness were written by hands and eyes and noses, which were not just empty. The world is full of many different things. But the non-dual view is the middle way. Not just one thing, everything is Brahman, everything is the Buddha nature, or many different things. Look at how much is happening in samsara. But as the Heart Sutra shows, form is emptiness, emptiness is form. There's not only emptiness because there is form, there's not only form because the form is actually empty of inherent existence. So when we read everything is consciousness, this is an invitation to become stupid. Spirituality is full of sentences which you think you understand. All is consciousness, but what is consciousness? Generally now in translating Dzogchen text, consciousness is a low term. It means dualistic subject and object activity. And we use awareness or rigpa or presence to describe a mind which is, or a clarity which is not resting anywhere, which has no support. So in the Advaita teachings, what is translated as consciousness is pretty much the same as Rigpa or awareness. The mind which manifests in the world of things and takes them as being real and separate, this is referred to as the Atman or Aham, the individual identity. Atman is non-dual with Brahman. You can say a lot about Atman. We can all talk a lot about ourselves, what we like, what we don't like. But Brahman, you can't say much about it. If you say it is, then what is it? What it is, you can't say. It is inexpressible. This is the nature of non-dual philosophy. The main difference in orientation between the Hindu system in this area and the Buddhist is that in Buddhism, we are concerned with two aspects of non-duality. In Hinduism, they're concerned with the individual self as being not separate from or non-dual with its own ground, which is Brahman, which is unborn. In Dzogchen, we have the same understanding. Of course, we use very different technical terms, but we are also interested in the non-duality of subject and object and the non-duality of polarities. So we have high and low, hot and cold. Hot has not much meaning unless we understand cold at the same time. Same with high. What does it mean if we don't understand low? So we can see the polarities as two things pushed apart. If something is low, it's not high. And so they are opposite, different, not the same. And yet, high and low are born together. You can't say that they're two. You can't say that they're one. They're not two because they need each other. And you can't say that they're one because they have some difference. So this understanding of non-duality is important for being in the world with other people. What we call conventional truth is a kind of experience where we take things to be strongly real and we take them to be different from other items in the world, especially different from their opposite. So when we want to establish, I was saying that this understanding of non-duality is useful for operating in the world, because we encounter all kinds of experiences. And mostly we are coming to an understanding of their function in terms of a polarity. So if you go to buy avocados, then you need to think, when do I want to eat it? Today or in 2 days' time? So you feel the avocado is soft, good for today, but maybe in 2 days' time, it will be a little bit rotting. Not ready, rotting. Expensive, price is okay. So all the time we have these schemas for locating the items which we encounter in the world in order to compare and contrast value. And there is a very important practice embedded in this, because you can focus on these binaries or these polarities in terms of this item excludes that one. Or we can see that this item is linked to the other item, which is similar but different. So when I say, oh, this is a perfect avocado, it depends when I want to eat it. If it's hard, it's, oh, I'll eat it at the weekend in a few days' time. So whenever you isolate a particular entity and you attribute a particular value to it, you're ignoring the context or the field within which this entity is. The value I attribute to the avocado is occurring within the extension of time and the extension of space and the extension of the temperature and whether I have a fridge at home or not. So you can compare avocados, but you can't compare non-dualities. In Hinduism, you have modified non-duality as well from Ramanuja. But in terms of the Advaita coming from Shankaracharya, it's non-dual, beyond comparing and contrasting. We are better than them. Now what? Because we are right, they are wrong. If they are wrong, they are contaminating the world. Therefore, it would be good to kill them. So we have only one truth. We have established the pure non-duality. This is madness, because not one, not many. So better to avoid philosophical arguments if you are interested in the practice of non-duality. So the next question is how to be with the one who is experiencing. How does one stay with the mind in which all phenomena arise? These questions are formulated as if we have a problem, as if they are addressing a problem, but in fact they are constructing the problem. How to be with the one who is experiencing. So if we go in a more simple direction, something is happening, maybe not a something, but there is occurrence. You can organize it in terms of shapes, colors, sensations, and so on, according to the pathway of the senses. I look at my table. It has a yellow oilcloth on top of it. So I see the color and the shape. I see the color. I am the subject. I am the experiencer. I am the experiencer of my experience. Subject and object arise together like waves in the ocean. You always have an object if you have a subject. So I'm talking and the moment and words come out of my mouth, I am the speaker, my hands are moving. But there is also an awareness of what is occurring. The awareness is not the subject. That is to say, how I experience my talking and what my hands are doing and the weight of my body on the chair and so on. All this is relative. Depends on the time of day, and the weather is shit in London and I don't get enough exercise. So I eat a little too much, my body becomes heavy. So that influences how I'm talking. The subject is in the world. My embodied presence in the world with objects is the part of the dual, non-dual emergence. This is happening to me. I take the body as being the home of my ego self. And I know that this is my proper home because if I smell something I don't like, no. I want to be close to things I like and have more of them, and I want to be away from things I don't like and have less. This is our ego identity. This is our self. This is being a person in the world. Awareness is not in the world. Awareness is not trapped in samsara and needs to be liberated. Awareness has no shape or color or form. It's neither inside nor outside the body. In certain kinds of practice, we might imagine it being in the heart, particularly in the heart chakra. But this is necessary only for certain kinds of practices. It's not the truth about awareness. Awareness is like the sky. So the experiencer is the individual self, the object experienced, the subject who does the experiencing, and the feeling tone of experience itself. These are referred to as the three wheels. They keep turning together and they generate this field of dualism that we inhabit. They are movement. Awareness doesn't move. The sky doesn't move, but clouds and wind and so on move through the sky. The mirror doesn't move, but the reflection moves in the mirror. So stay close to how occurrence is occurring. Don't analyze it. Don't think about it. Don't conceptualize it. Coming, going, coming, going, coming, going. Oh, still here. What is this that is still here? This is where tricky, deceitful, demonic delusion will grasp you. Who is still here? Me. I'm still here. The permanent self. This is the point where you become stupid. Don't believe, don't be seduced by the meaning tone of the concept. In our practice, we simply relax and open, and we're with whatever is occurring. Sometimes it looks outside, sometimes it seems in the body. These are interpretations based on concepts. Don't add extra ingredients. We want the fresh taste. No pepper, no salt, no curry powder. Just this. And this goes, and this goes, and this goes. Who is there? Don't conceptualize. If you look for the concept to tell you the truth, then you are only in samsara. But if you see that the concept is already vanishing in the moment that it tells you the truth, then, oh, this concept has been sent by Don Giovanni. Not even a one-night stand, not even a quick fuck in the toilet of a club. Oh, and gone. No. But we fall into this and believe in it, and it seems to be real. So don't be seduced. When you know that you are the one that is the thinker and the doer and so on, then you are in the land of the concept, you are in samsara. So again and again and again, when the tempter, when the ego formation offers you the truth and the meaning of the world, don't follow. The thought is finite, and all finite forms vanish. So no matter what their intensity or their flavor or their seeming value, they are going to lead you the wrong way. So with the second part of the question, how does one stay with the mind in which all phenomena arise? The way to do this is so you do the guru yoga in whatever form, or just relax in the out breath. Now you're just sitting. Who is sitting? No one is sitting. As excuse me, as long as the reassuring interpretive thought arises, I am thinking, this is me, I am like this, then we are going to go the wrong way. Subject and object are moving in the ocean of the mind like waves on the surface. If you follow the waves, you are in the water. You are the subject following the object. This is identification. Who does this identifying with this transient formation as if it was my true self? This is the hungry ego. The ego is born from the delusion, I exist. This is a lie. I exist. Okay, prove it. Who are you? I'm this. I'm hungry, I'm tired, I'm Scottish. I have to have something happening in order to exist. To exist means to exist as something, as someone. To exist is to be finite, yet everything is moving. The finite is also moving. Whatever you say about yourself is already dissolving. This is why we just sit and allow the mind to show itself. The mind has, whatever I say will never be exactly right because this is beyond conceptualization. But for our purposes as meditators, it is as if there are two aspects to the mind, the still and the moving. The still, when you awaken to it, is called the Dharmakaya. The moving is called the Rupakaya, the formation manifestation. This has two aspects, the Sambhogakaya, the modality of enjoyment, of bliss, and the second is the Nirmanakaya, the mode of participation, stillness and movement. The Dharmakaya never moves, and the other two are always moving. We don't understand this because we are identified with the movement. And the ego is the delusion that the moving is still. I am here. Sometimes I'm tired, sometimes I'm lazy, but I am here. This is ignorance. That's not an insult, it's simply a description that this formation ignores its own actual situation. This is like a child saying, I love my mummy. When I grow up, I'm going to marry mummy. The child doesn't see how the world functions. And so it's mixing two categories, loving my mum and marrying this woman. So something is stable. What is stable is emptiness. Awareness is the awareness of emptiness. The ego is not stable, not fixed, but always changing. So this is how we practice. Means when you are sitting, every time you feel you have arrived someplace or some particular flavor or position or truth is the real thing, you've got lost. You've got lost. So although it doesn't feel true to our ego self, open awareness is enough. When we feel a need to get involved in thoughts, or we find ourselves pursuing a chain of thought, then we are falling under the power of the need to be something. We don't need any of these things. Awareness doesn't need a particular kind of experience. The body, the form manifestation needs things. In winter, we don't want to get too cold. In summer, we don't want to get too hot. The one who gets hot or cold is the ego, not awareness. So it's so vital to come back again and again to the first point of Garab Dorji in his famous 3 statements. He says that you have to awaken to your own true face. Your own true face means how it is. If you imagine that you live in a country where there are no mirrors and no cameras, then this face is not a what for you. It's a how. You're living through your face, not something you have. Only when you get the representation or the reflection in a mirror or film, then you think, oh, that is me. Then it's as if you can apprehend your identity. Now, this is who I am. But the how of the face, when you feel it from the inside, it's just like something open. It's open and available. Then things are moving around us and we respond. The coloration of our face alters with the temperature and our health and so on. And our expression changes as we respond to events. So the face in itself is ungraspable. And yet there is a responsivity which is moving across the surface of the face. But of course, we have to be careful not to grasp the expression as the truth, because people might look quite stern and serious. And then one day you see them laughing. Why are they so serious? Because life is shit. Now they have something to laugh about. It's that simple. The mood, maybe somebody is depressed or they're anxious, but not all the time. Sometimes people respond to animals and they're completely transformed. In the park, they meet someone with a nice friendly Labrador. Suddenly they're making different sounds out of their mouth and their body's moving. So here, with regard to the face, the ungraspable face is like the Dharmakaya. The showingness of the face is like the clarity of the Sambhogakaya. And the shifting movement of your expressions is your responsivity in relation to the shifting environment. The second two are easy. At least they're easy to do in the wrong way. The first one, the Dharmakaya aspect or the open aspect, the unborn aspect, this is more difficult. How can nothing be better than something? This, of course, is the devil's question. This is why they say, do as you are told. Don't argue with the teacher. Do as you are told. Your own thoughts are nonsense. Nonsense. You think you are very intelligent, but you know nothing. Or rather, unfortunately, you don't know nothing. You know too many somethings. You can't find your empty ground because you are so addicted to your own beautiful thoughts and feelings and sensations and memories. There is a time for thinking, and that time is not called meditation. Okay, so how you find yourself in the presence of your own unborn awareness is by not doing what you ordinarily do. That's easy to say, but we are structured by habit formation. Even if our culture these days is not organized by formal rituals as it was 500 years ago with the church and the royal court and so on, we are still following the rituals of our family, how you set out the knife and fork on the table and so on. You learn these patterns and it seems true for you. This is how we do it. And these rituals of self-construction, they're not going to vanish completely. It's not about getting rid of yourself. It's about awakening to the illusory quality of this self. Some of you have met many famous lamas. You might have met them several times, and you were able to recognize them by how they walked, how they sat, how they talked, how they smiled or didn't smile. I recognize them. You recognize the patterning of how their energy displays. Oh, that is the karmapa. I know the karmapa. Unlikely. The karmapa is unknowable. You also are unknowable. But because you think you know yourself and you think you knew your mom and your dad, this very knowledge is your stupidity. When you know that you will never know the karmapa, that the karmapa is beyond thought, then you start to see, oh, maybe I am also beyond thought. So what we want to awaken to in the therapy is our unborn self. And all that you know about yourself will not help you to find your unborn self. Okay, then we have time for one more question. What to do if insight reduces one's fluctuating interest in people, that they are not so exciting or even a bit gray? We live in a culture structured around romantic love. Do you love me? Am I still important for you? Do you want to see me? Do you like looking at me? When you get some insight, questions like that will indeed look very gray, because the person is saying, I am limited, I am anxious, I am insecure, and I need you to tell me that you love me. Don't worry, darling. I'm so happy to love an anxious, insecure woman. You're all I've ever dreamed of. So, in the tradition, of course, when you see how the world is and how people are, you want to cry morning and night. It's terrible. I was talking today about an issue in someone who is in the work of someone who is a therapist. Her daughter is 16, and the mother is early 40s. The mother dresses quite young and is becoming increasingly jealous of the 16-year-old daughter looking so young and lovely, as if the daughter was a rival. And this is tragic. Sad for the older woman, but also very difficult for the daughter. When in our Buddhist practice, when we do the 7 branch worship, we rejoice in the merits of others. And the texts say that if you from the heart, if you celebrate the good luck and the good fortune of other people, you also will have that quality. But this poor woman, she can't celebrate her beautiful young daughter. She can't be proud that she has a daughter so wonderful. because her fear is that I will be in the shadow of my daughter. So when we develop some insight and we look around, we see, oh, this is samsara. So in the general Buddhist teachings, they say there are three kinds of suffering. There is immediate kind of suffering, like if you get stung by a bee. Then there is this suffering of change, where circumstances disturb your sense of the predictable quality of your life. For example, with this virus, the COVID virus, then people can't have their ordinary life, their usual life. I want to get back to normal. And this suffering is increased if you have no sense of impermanence. But there is a third level of suffering, the suffering of compoundedness, which is, it's said to be for we ordinary people don't experience it very directly. The Buddhas experience it, or the great meditators. So if you have a piece of dust and it falls on your hand, it doesn't bother you. You don't notice it. But if the dust went into your eye, you would notice it. So this is what we experience in the practice. When you walk down the street, you're not so preoccupied in your own thoughts, and you see the expression on people's faces. And certainly in London, what you see is loneliness, anxiety, mad preoccupation, and so on, because the face is showing the suffering of samsara. These people are not going to be as exciting and as fascinating as if you were looking for someone who was really existing. You see, oh, this is a lost person. They are wandering, they're truly wandering, they have no idea what is life for. So then you start to see, oh, I would rather do the practice and dedicate merit to that person than sit in a cafe and talk to them. Because what will we talk about? They tell us how difficult their life is. They look for some reassurance. So if we say, yes, I can see your life is very hard, but it is my duty to tell you that when you die, it's going to be much worse. This will not make them happy. There are 6 realms in samsara, and factory farming is very popular. In the sheds where they have 10,000 chickens all together, each of these chickens has Buddha nature. You have Buddha nature. At the moment, you have Buddha nature wrapped inside a selfish, suffering existence. But next time you might be a pig in a cage or a chicken in a little cage. So what shall we say to people? Dharma, Buddhism is not a missionary religion. People are drawn to Dharma by some pattern in their own mind. If you go up to someone in the street and say, hey, you are not who you think you are. I'm myself. What do you mean? Like that. It's very difficult to bring Dharma to people who have no flavor for it, who don't get the perfume of it. And this would make us weep, wandering in delusion, but offering no way to have an opening to see how their life really is. So when we practice in order to have a new kind of experience. And compassion, unless it is completely united with wisdom, with the understanding of emptiness, brings a lot of sadness. So helping others means doing our practice. We think about benefiting others before the practice, during the practice, and after the practice. This world is not so exciting. And with climate change and the virus and new illnesses, we will see more clearly that really this is not paradise. The main thing is to awaken to your mind as it is. Okay, so that is our time for today. Thank you to the organizers and Pedro, who will prepare the recordings, and to our translators, Jayachita, Mariana, and Milton. And I hope you have a good evening. And for those who wish, on Saturday, we will be looking at the Guru. Okay, so goodbye. Cheers.
Bye.
James.
Bye. Thank you, James.
Bye, James.
Bye.
Thank you, James.
Obrigado.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, James.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.